Hello, everyone. My guest today is Dan Sachs. He's president and co-CEO of AppDirect, the only end-to-end cloud commerce platform for succeeding in the digital economy, which he co-founded in 2009 with his partner. He and his co-founder dreamed to someday build a business worthy of the Inc. 500 list. Since starting his entrepreneurial journey, Dan and his co-founder officially launched the company in 2011, raised over $245 million in venture financing, and reached a company valuation of more than $1 billion. The AppDirect ecosystem now powers millions of cloud subscriptions worldwide and connects channels, developers, and customers to simplify the digital supply chain. All right, Dan, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, let's do it, Nathan.
All right, very good. So let's just jump in kind of to day one. Tell us first off, before we get to that story, kind of what AppDirect does and how you make money. Is it pure play SaaS?
Yeah, so AppDirect helps businesses find, buy, and use cloud services. And we generate revenue both from a share of the transaction fee or the rev share, as well as a platform fee for those that use our services to make money in the cloud.
Yeah, and today when you break down revenues, though, is more of it coming from essentially the referral fees or more coming from just the flat SaaS fee to use the platform?
A combo of both, but definitely the platform fee was the lion's share of the initial product, and then we see really, really high growth in the transaction fees as well. So it's similar to a billing platform in that we run kind of a SaaS subscription as a white labeled marketplace and developer ecosystem that helps businesses of all types, so large businesses and small businesses. We work with a lot of major telcos, Comcast, and others around the world, helps them get to market faster. And then we also share an upside in the sell-through.
And so tell us the story about Comcast. Specifically, how do they use you?
Yeah, definitely. So
if you can.
One of the opportunities that's emerged over the last several years with the growth in cloud is that businesses want to be able to access cloud services from people they trust. And going back to the early founding of AppDirect, we always had this fundamental perspective that most businesses don't necessarily want to just go online and subscribe to services. They want to buy everything they need from a trusted provider. So Comcast is an example of a brand with Comcast Business that offers, telecom services, internet, and is a great trusted provider to also offer things like collaboration services, email, backup, and others. So that's how we help them. We enable them to get access to a portfolio of services that they can sell to their customers.
And then you've got kind of four different, I think, sectors with your market reseller devices and then your billing platforms. Each of those, there are mega players in terms of competition. So talk to me about kind of like the network modules built into AppDirect, since you are a platform, and how that allows you to defend each of those four beachheads.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's unique about AppDirect is that based on the way that we are positioned in the market, we're really the only player that can enable someone to resell our portfolio of cloud services. And we focus on helping people monetize in the cloud as well as manage relationships. And our products fall across that different bucket. So while within each area, there may be a pure play competitor, in terms of us, we're operating as the only suite. So you can think of it as what HubSpot is for marketing and sales, or for what NetSuite is for back office. We are for commerce. So really helping a business end to end manage anything that they need in terms of making money in the cloud and managing their customer relationships in the cloud.
Yep. And then give me a sense on average. I mean, what are people, I'm sure there's a huge span. I don't want to go down every cohort, but on average, what do one of these customers pay you per month?
Definitely. So our license fees range, dramatically.
Yeah.
But we have entry level, perspectives that would start around a few K per month, depending on the complexity, and going all the way up to, the hundreds of thousands for more complex deployments.
Yeah. Today, I'm sure you have an inside sales team, this kind of thing. Is there a specific cohort you're focused on today? Are you generally moving upstream or downstream?
Yeah. So we started, the highest of upstream, and then we created beachheads in different verticals. So we've rolled out from telco to VAR and MSP. And now actually what's a fascinating vertical for us is manufacturing. So even traditionally, you wouldn't have thought of a manufacturing firm as one that is at a core a software company. But many firms are looking to digitally transform themselves through IoT. And therefore, if you used to produce hardware, the value is not necessarily in the hardware itself. It's around the connectivity and the software and the ecosystem you can provide. So we're seeing a lot of growth in our manufacturing vertical.
And just to be clear, the number you said earlier, where you kind of let people in the many thousands range, you're talking ACV there or monthly ARPU? Monthly ARPU. Okay, let's get more into the founding story. So 2011, where was your head? Did you just quit a corporate job and your back is against the wall and you got to make something work? Where were you?
Yeah, so I was actually graduating out of school, and it was just really the height of the recession. So businesses around the world were struggling. My family actually had a furniture store in Niagara Falls, Canada on Main Street. And, grew up in the store. My great grandparents started it. It was really the pride for us in the community. And when the recession hit, we had to shut it down. And that really kind of marked me in saying the opportunity for entrepreneurship in the early 2009 2010 timeframe was really bleak. On the other hand, you came to visit my co-founder, who at the time was a Bain company in San Francisco, and we kind of saw the opportunity that cloud services could bring to really help empower business owners around the world. And the biggest gap that we saw in the market is that from my family experience, I remember that buying software was a major decision.
Yep.
And that we knew the people who sold us the software. I still remember the person's name who sold my family their ERP solution. His name was Rick Stark. And he knew the furniture vertical really well. So we really sought to build this global network that connects the developers of applications with the end businesses. And thus, we've become this, ecosystem for distributing services around the world.
And what have you scaled to today in terms of total customers using the platform?
Yeah, so we reach now over 35 million customers around the world. So super excited to have such a wide business footprint, from starting in an apartment executive like that there.
When you say 35 million, are we talking like seats per logos, or tell me exactly what that means?
That's our reach. So that would be the customers of our customers that we have reach to. But we do have millions of paid business users.
Got it. So I'll just put a minimum on that and say you have definitely more than a million, and those obviously then touch on average 35 each, right? If there's 35 million with a minimum of a million.
Sure. Yeah.
Something like that. You have network effects. That's the easy way to say it, right?
Massive network effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Walk me through for that first year. So who was your first customer and how'd you land them?
So our first customer was actually Bell Canada in Canada, and
it wasn't the furniture company, huh?
I know. There we go.
Yeah.
But that was the idea, close to home. But there were two people. We were two people in an apartment at the time, and the idea of enabling this massive company was definitely a daunting task. But we really believed that if we could empower a company that has big reach over a country or an area, then that would have the biggest impact. So instead of going door to door and selling directly to small businesses, we sought to partner with people who had millions of business customers. So Bell had over 500,000 business customers at the time in Canada, and we really wanted to enable them to have early access to SaaS solutions. So we went and we aggregated relevant services for the Canadian market, and that was our first footprint. And then because of Bell, we got Deutsche Telekom, and because of that we got.
What was that first sale though? What was the size? I'm curious. Can you share since it was so long ago?
Yeah. So the funny thing is that we went in with this idea that, okay, we're gonna propose this, we're gonna get budget, and it's gonna be millions of dollars. And early days we kind of thought because the project value was so big, we'd get a lot of that. But one of the things that we realized is that while we approved and earmarked the project that had a lot of money, they didn't have enough, a lot of budget for us ourselves. So we had to think creatively about how we help them to support, the business case and get to market.
So this is usually an embarrassing number, but I'm curious. Do you remember what first year revenue was, 2011?
Yeah, it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Couple hundreds of thousands. Okay, good. So, and did you bootstrap or did you raise before you even had a product?
So we bootstrapped as long as we could, and then it started to ramp up, and we saw growth. But we had very early partners. So the idea for that first launch was that it was a 9-month sales cycle. And once we had the letter of intent from the company, then the investors said, okay, we'll give you the first seed money to make this happen.
And what have you raised to date?
Made it happen. Yeah.
And what have you raised to date, Daniel?
245 million.
245. And so this is obviously fairly aggressive, right? A lot of people are arguing that you can actually stay private now with so much kind of VC money out there. Is that generally the plan for you guys? You're kind of out of you'd have to do some very drastic things, I imagine, to prepare yourself to go public and get out from under kind of liquidation preferences and things.
Yeah, so we've always had a long-term approach to the business and had clean terms from investors. So I think for us, it's really about when the market opportunity makes the most sense. And for now, we're seeing a lot of growth and trajectory in the private markets, but at the same time, we do see it being more attractive, and there's a bigger opening than ever for enterprise companies of our profile to go public. So I think that we're investing ahead of the curve and hopeful that we continue to focus for the long term, whether that means private or public down the road.
Yep. And what are you at today in terms of revenue?
Can't disclose.
Okay. Have you put out anything that's given a general range in that, or what was the last update you gave publicly?
It was probably years ago, but we've been recognized as being one of the fastest companies in the world, and continuing to, or in the Bay Area and in technology, and then definitely continuing the growth trajectory, and excited to have announcements in the future.
Yeah, there's a pretty reliable source that said in 13 you passed 9 million, and then in 14 you more than doubled up to 18. Have you guys passed the $100 million mark yet?
Like I said, I can't say, but definitely grown tremendously since then. So it's been a fun steep curve.
At your scale, what does tremendous growth actually mean? It changes. It's easier to go from $1 to $2. It's much harder to go from 100 million to 200 million.
Yeah, no. So what I would say is that we used to call this thing called like the Formula One track, which is if you can go triple, double, double. So for a while that was the trajectory that we're on. And now we're falling nicely into what you'd see in public comps in terms of growth rates for benchmarks. Got
it. Just basically south of doubling.
Can't say, but definitely excited.
Well, just save me the work from finding the public benchmarks. When you say you're looking at public benchmarks, what specifically are you referring to? Other SaaS companies that are public and their growth rates at your size, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, got it. Very good. Tell me about churn.
So one of the things that's unique about us is we have net dollar retention across our customer cohorts. So because we have, the potential upside within enterprises that we sign on.
You mean above 100%? Everyone has net dollar retention, but you mean you have more than 100%?
Yeah, exactly. Of that cohort.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool because our customers, stick with us and buy more, which is super exciting.
Do you have, you have enough, I imagine, enough years of history to understand pretty predictably what a year one ACV turns into in year two and year three and year four? Generally speaking, are you driving like 110% net dollar retention, 140%? What's that look like?
It ranges by customer, but what we definitely see is that, and once our customers get going, there's a trajectory that's north of double digits in terms of, predictable growth. Okay. And it definitely depends on the size and the scale of the company.
And everyone obviously changes pricing, product mix, et cetera, to understand which kind of levers are most effective for driving expansion revenue. You probably get a lot of feedback from your sales team on this, but what have you found to be the most successful kind of pricing axes to drive the expansion? Is it a utility metric, like a number of whatever build contacts, or is it a product add-on? Where do you see that falling?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when you think about pricing, the way I look at it is always how do you create the most value for the customer stakeholders that you're working with. So we've really kind of kept the same pricing framework, but really always anchored it based on value. So as we roll out new products, we look at what value will that create for our customers, and how do we make it work with their business cases. So oftentimes for customers of ours, they want to move to a predictable recurring model, but at the same time they may have some CapEx or want to do certain integrations. So what we've focused on is really automating a lot of the components of our platform to reduce the cost to deploy and launch. And that makes for a much more predictable revenue stream. And we can do that through a lot of product automation. So, if you go back to some of our first customer launches, it would have taken thousands of custom engineering hours to get that going. We've gotten that down to point and click, which adds huge value in the ecosystem. So for our customers, it reduces time to market, drives more predictability, and thereby adds a lot more value for them.
Is there a single utility metric you've kind of identified as the core value metric? HubSpot would say number of contacts. Salesforce might use something else. Twilio would say number of API calls via text. Do you guys have a metric like that really drives a lot of your business?
Yeah, we really think about gross market value. So it's the aggregate, sell through across any one client, and making sure that meets their objectives and goals.
Got it. So net dollar retention, obviously in a great spot. What are you paying to acquire new customers typically?
So what's unique about us is that we have a really kind of small elephant hunting type team. So for this revenue scale that we have, we've traditionally had a relatively smaller enterprise sales team, which really gives us an effective cost of acquisition. Because to get some of these large deals, we have one rep, and what's really exciting is that for the sales team here, the more they stay, typically the more skill sets they gain, and they can really make a lot of money in terms of working with the right deals and adding a lot of value to our customers.
So what's your team size today?
So overall, we're about 650 people.
Okay, based mainly in San Fran or spread out?
Spread out. So one of the things we started in San Francisco and scaled to about 200 here, and then through both acquisition and organic, have grown elsewhere. So we have a big footprint in Canada, both in Montreal, Calgary, and Ottawa, and continue to grow across all of our different vectors.
Let me ask kind of the economics question around CAC a little bit differently. You're probably at a scale where you focus more kind of on, new dollars of ARR driven per dollar invested or kind of magic number kind of stuff. Do you have a typical payback period you like to try and hit or stay below?
Definitely we have internal targets in terms of where we want to be. I think that it depends on really the cohorts that we're selling into. So as I mentioned, we have our enterprise sales force. We look to benchmark them against certain payback period. And then we look at that in commercial as well.
Talk to me about just the enterprise side there. What do you see? Don't talk about your specific numbers, but when you do try and benchmark, who are you looking at and what are those paybacks you're typically benchmarking against?
Yeah, I think the way that we'd like to see it is, because we have low churn or net dollar retention, and because we can generally get long sales cycles, what we see is that if we pay more upfront from a compensation perspective or cost of sales perspective, over time, we make that back pretty significantly. And we've played around with different levers in terms of, what you want to look at. But if my advice to anyone who would be looking at setting, comp and expectations is to really think about, what are the behaviors or drivers that will happen no matter what. So if you know that your customers are signing up, there's a lot of value, they're going to stay for a long time, then you can afford to be more flexible on the upside. Provided the market opportunity is really big.
But you've raised so much capital. I could see a very rational argument where you're being more aggressive in terms of payback because you have the cash cushion. Are you up north of 18 months right now in terms of payback, or are you closer to 12 or 6?
We're definitely in that range depending on the cohort. But I think you could definitely, again, because of the customer lifetime values, we can definitely be in a larger range than 6.
Last question here before we wrap up, how do you model lifetime values with confidence? A lot of people say we have 6 years of lifetime value, and they could argue for indefinite value. It's infinite because churn is so low, but that can be dangerous. How do you keep yourself honest on that metric?
Yeah, so I think whenever you approach long-term value, I think you can lean from the data in the past to prove, but ultimately there has to be a call and comfort level made, and that's where the levers can draw. So as you mentioned, if you have more of a cash cushion and you want to be more aggressive to capture a lot of market, then you can take a bolder stance on the way you think about that lifetime value. If not, you can be much more conservative.
Yep. Actually, I lied. One last question before we wrap up. So, are you guys filing to go public in the next 12 months or no?
I obviously can't answer that, but I think we're really excited about the position we're in, and we'll definitely reach out to you when we have more news to come.
Very good. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Izzy Sharp from the Four Seasons.
So who was that?
Izzy Sharp from the Four Seasons. I've always admired him. Got a chance to meet him earlier this year.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building your business besides your own?
A ton of amazing online tools, but I'll say FreshBooks is great for invoicing.
Another good Canadian breakout story. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
6.
That's pretty good. And what's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Getting married this summer.
Oh, good. So no kids yet then, huh?
No, not yet.
All right, very good. And how old are you?
I'm 33.
33. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Just have conviction in your vision and keep going.
Guys, there you have it. Have conviction in your vision. Keep going. He learned a lot from his furniture company in terms of buying software and the difficulties with it back in 2011 after he graduated, teamed up with his buddies, had his sights out for a big multi-million-dollar first deal, hit the ground running, and learned the hard way. It wasn't going to be so easy, but they've had success. They've scaled the company now over 650 people at AppDirect, basically doing what a HubSpot might do for marketing and sales. They're doing for e-commerce. 4 core products, many more, beachheads, many products under each of those beachheads. Again, measuring kind of gross market volume or gross transaction volume across their customers using those products. Super healthy economics, $245 million raised, millions of paying customers. Daniel, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thanks a lot. Take care.